This week, America saw one of its former presidents being arrested in broad daylight. And no points for guessing, I'm talking about Donald Trump. The same Donald Trump who walked away from the White House on the 20th of January 2021 with a sore face and without greeting his successor, Joe Biden. Ever since, Trump hasn't really received the kind of press attention that he did all of this week. And no surprises there, because this week, Donald Trump became the first president in the history of the United States to face criminal charges and to be indicted for them. These charges are related to hush money paid to a porn star in 2016 ahead of Trump's election to the White House. These aren't necessarily the most serious charges that Trump is facing, but the first on which he has been indicted and arraigned. On Tuesday, Trump had a dramatic day in court. He flew from Florida to New York the day before. He landed in his private plane, spent the night in Trump Tower, and then the next morning he went to the courtroom. But before leaving for court, Trump posted a note on his social app, and he wrote, and I quote, "Seems so surreal. Wow, they're going to arrest me." He went on to add, "Can't believe this is happening in America. MAGA." MAGA, of course, short for Make America Great Again, which, as all of you remember, is the political slogan that Trump has used for his 2016 campaign and all through his stint in the White House. In his social media post, Trump went on to declare, and I'm quoting here, "The radical left Democrats have criminalized the justice system," unquote. Outside the court stood hundreds of people, many sporting MAGA hats and waving the American flag. Trump waved at them. The scene looked like an election campaign. And honestly, Trump's appearance in court, that he had branded as a kangaroo court, may well turn out to have quite an impact on American politics. You see, Donald Trump is making the most of this media attention. He is using the spotlight to campaign for a second stint in the White House. I don't know if you know this, but Trump has already declared that he is running for office, meaning come 2024, Trump will be seeking the Republican ticket to take on Joe Biden or whoever the Democratic candidate is. Now, what this case does is give Trump the opportunity to energize his support base and also raise funds for his campaign. It is no wonder that the former president is milking the arrest by presenting himself as the victim of a witch hunt and even hinting at a plot by the deep state against him. But how much of this will actually bear fruit and how much of it could actually backfire? Let's not forget, Trump still faces 34 felony charges in this case alone. Of course, he's pleading not guilty to all of them. But then there are other cases coming up, other indictments that could also come up. And all of this may open the door to a legal process that may last for months. Now, you could argue it perfectly coincides with an election campaign. But then there are also chances that things don't go exactly according to plan. And yes, there are those other cases, and it's never fun, I guess, for anybody to be indicted or arraigned in criminal charges, no matter whether you think it's going to help your political campaign or not. But for more on all of this, let's bring in John Bolton. He's served as the National Security Advisor to Trump. He's also served as the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. Ambassador Bolton, thank you so much for joining us, and it's great to have you talking to us. You, of course, worked closely with Donald Trump in the past. What do you make of these unprecedented scenes that we've seen in the United States? A former president being arrested and indicted and arraigned. What do you make of these scenes that we've seen in the U.S. this week?
Well, certainly it's without precedent. It's not a good day for the United States that this has happened, whatever people's political perspectives might be. But it also indicates, I think, how uncertain the political developments here are going to be leading up to the 2024 election. The irony is that that being indicted has actually helped Trump in the Republican nomination fight for 2024. People think the prosecutor in New York is biased, that it's political, that he's singled Trump out. I personally, speaking as a lawyer myself, I think the indictment is very weak on a number of grounds that may make it different from some of the other criminal investigations that are now underway, and they have yet to come to a resolution. But from my perspective of not wanting Trump to be the Republican nominee, Ironically, as I say, the indictment is harmful to that effort because it helps Trump.
Ambassador Bolton, so when you're saying that this particular indictment is on relatively weak grounds, I have heard from many people who are not Trump supporters, who don't want Trump to be the Republican candidate, saying this indictment is potentially one of the weakest and maybe it would have been better if one of the other cases that he's facing indictment on would have actually come up. Now, that's one point of view. It could also be argued that no matter who you are, what you have done, if you've done something that is potentially a criminal act, then you should be facing the due process of law.
Well, it's a very important point that there's one law that applies to every citizen, no matter what their position. The problem here is Trump has been able to make the argument that this is a political prosecution and that he's being singled out unfairly. And when the indictment itself is very weak, it plays into that line of argument. Now, the real test, of course, will be whether he is acquitted or whether he is convicted. If he's acquitted, in this particular case, then that would add to his argument that it was all politically motivated. If he's convicted, I think it's a very different outcome politically as well as legally. And I think that also applies to the other pending investigations, the accusation of trying to steal the election in Georgia and the two federal elections, one dealing with January 6th, one dealing with the classified documents.
And this particular case is, of course, somewhat muddled because at the same time as you're having this indictment, you've had Stormy Daniels losing a defamation case to Trump, having to pay Trump a certain amount of money. Would you say, Ambassador Bolton, that the entire political dynamics could change if he also gets indicted in some of the other cases? So it's not just this one case, but the other cases also come up.
Well, I think obviously you have to see what the indictments turn out to be, but the argument that he tried to persuade Georgia election officials in 2020 to make up votes to allow him to win the state and win Georgia's electors is a very serious challenge. This is not the tawdry issue of paying hush money to a porn star to cover up an extramarital affair. This is something that does go directly to the integrity of the electoral process. But there again, the indictment would only be the beginning of the case. And the question there would be, again, is he acquitted or is he convicted? An acquittal, if you begin to build up a string of acquittals, then it really does strengthen the Trump position, at least as far as getting the Republican nomination, which is why, again, many Republicans believe that Donald Trump is the Democrats' best asset. So of all the potential Republican candidates, the Democrats would rather face Trump, whereas these indictments, this alleged persecution, builds up his chances to get the Republican nomination, but makes it easier for the Democrats to beat him in the general election.
Thank you so much for being with us with that perspective.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.